Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow. I hope if you're joining us straight here from Channel 31. I hope you enjoyed our interview with Cooper Webster there. They're one of the yet another one of these confident young Australian racing drivers, and of course we'll see him in action in September at S5000 when it returns at Sandown. I believe the first round is. At the moment, looking like that series that's supposed to kick off at Albert Park. Well, it might still go ahead, but I don't think it'll be kicking off at Albert Park somehow. But we can discuss a little bit of that later. But yes, we've got a cast of. We've got a cast of thousands with us tonight. Well, no, okay, we haven't got a cast of thousands. We've got about five people with us, and there you can see Stuart is attacking, dealing with cats at the moment. So that's a very important issue. But as you can see, Chris is with us again. Richard Outram is also with us, and of
Good
course
evening.
Pete. How are
Hey,
you? How are you, gentlemen?
all right. Yep. How are you?
Good to catch up with you guys. We've got some people on. Got some people. Jeff is joining us once again. G'day, Jeff. How are you? Good to see you once again. And also Tony's joining us once again, and Mark White's with us as well. So good evening to all you guys. Thanks for joining. If you're joining us as well, like to ask a question or leave a comment, just do so in the chat section on YouTube or under the on the Facebook page under your comments there. Box also with us again. G'day, how are you, Box? And also Michael Helzel is with us again as well. So thanks for joining us, guys. Well, yeah, interesting week. No Formula One last week. We get Formula One again this week. Of course, French Grand Prix will be happening, but we had lots of drag racing last week. I don't know if anybody saw the live stream from the Winter Nationals. Started out a bit wonky, but yeah, really came good at the very quickly. They sort of came up to ironed out a few technical problems, as you often get in the world of live streaming, and it was a really top class coverage after that. So that was a good there. Mark is pointing out that his mad cow mate, he is coming there. He has dropped. That's his non superhero. Mark White is his non super secret identity. So thanks, Mike. So anyway, yeah, drag racing. Apart from that, we've got well, what are we going to talk about, guys? I mean, there's not a huge amount of stuff happening. Well, there's a little bit as the bottom. We don't have Doc with us at the moment, so we can't talk about really the Grassini switch from Ducati to or from Aprilia to Ducati. They've been with Aprilia for quite some time, and they're switching to Ducati, which is interesting. Grassini, very popular team, and been around for quite some time. So interesting to see them making the move over to Ducati with a lot of other people as well. Peter, what about Formula One news? We've got Esteban Ocon has re-signed with Alpine. That might be a bit of at least a temporary roadblock to young Oscar Piastri.
Yes. Yeah. Um, yeah. It might be. And there's also Pirelli's delivered their verdict on the tires from Azerbaijan, and they're going to have different tire pressures from now on, and they'll be policing it more because there was also an allegation that the everyone was meant to be using tire blankets in qualifying for Monaco, but Red Bull weren't didn't have their tire blankets on, so it was claimed that they had an advantage.
Yeah, because of course if they put the tyre blankets on, I mean obviously heats up the wheels and tyres, and that of course will raise the pressure. So if they've gone in without using the tyre blankets, they're running at a probably lower pressure than they would normally run. It seemed to be about that. It certainly looked like the original thing that came out from Pirelli was that that it was an actual that it was debris, but it certainly didn't. As we mentioned last week on the show, I mean, it certainly didn't look like debris. It certainly looked like a tyre failure in both cases, and that's obviously what it was.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah. Richard, you are muted. Hang on, I'll see if I can unmute you. There we go.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
There he is.
It looked like a tyre failure to me.
Yeah, well, it came
Same
away
there.
on the inside. It wasn't like there was a great big slash across the tyre or anything, or if it blew out on the face of the tyre. It was on the end. There seemed to be in both cases. It was the inside. The sidewalls came away from the face of the tyre. So, and that would indicate that that's the sort of thing that often happens when you're running not enough pressure in the tyres and they move around a bit much and get overheated. But yeah, so
Brett, I noticed in the pull through that there's some talk about free-to-air television on Formula One not being killed off.
no, what's Lewis Hamilton is basically because it's the same situation around the world. I mean, free-to-air television is under threat, pretty much everywhere. And what Lewis was saying in an interview in England, he was hoping that there won't be the sort of backlash that we've seen, around the world against everything moving to pay TV. And he's sort of saying he hopes that Formula One fans will remain loyal, even though they can't get their favourite sport on free-to-air television anymore. They've just signed a deal in Holland, in the Netherlands, for a massive deal to go onto a pay TV service there. I think they're now on a pay TV service exclusively in Italy, and of course here it's pretty much, apart from the Australian Grand Prix in terms of live events, we're pay TV here in Australia, so. It's the way of the world, unfortunately. I mean, in terms of the people who are able to pay the sort of big money that sporting organisations want and demand these days, the only people who can pay that is basically, well, certainly in Australia, it's Rupert Murdoch. I mean, they're the only game in town, and at the moment. But the interesting thing was, it was announced yesterday that the 10 network, through their owners CBS Viacom, and the brand new soon to debut Paramount Plus pay TV service had signed a very big deal for all the international soccer matches or football matches involving the Socceroos, the Olyroos, the Matildas, all of those people, and the A-Leaguers. They've already signed the A-League. Now that's interesting that a lot of that stuff is going to be on the Paramount Plus service, which means there's now another player in the game, and that will absolutely bring a huge smile to the face of certainly supercars and other categories, because they've now got people. As it was at the moment. I mean, when supercars brought up the rights last time, 10 didn't want them anymore. 9 had no interest in them. It really was, only what they could get from the only people who really put in serious bids were Foxtel and Channel 7. And Channel 7 basically wanted Bathurst and a handful of big events. Like this weekend, for instance, the Darwin race, and once again, that's a contractual thing. A lot of you'll notice a lot of the street races are on free to air, and that's because they're the government sponsored, and the governments obviously who are paying this money obviously want to get the biggest audience, and the biggest audience is still by a mile on free to air TV, which is hence why we want to keep Channel 31 on free to air TV. Because of course this time next week, as far as I know, I think next week we get on. And then I think we've got one. I think next week will be our last. If they do cut 31 off on June the 30th, next week will be the final edition of In Pit Lane on Channel 31 as a free to air television service. So but more about that later. But. Yeah, okay. Russell is joining us as well. Yeah, we'll also talk about. Just Stuart's about to rejoin us again. Steve, the Fink Desert race. Toby Price, a fabulous win in the four-wheel section there, but of course came to a tragic end rather early. To be honest with you, I haven't sort of kept up with it. there. I didn't actually put it in the news, so it was one of those things where it's just sort of too depressing. You sit there and think, oh, I really should say, and the more you sort of look at it, you think, oh, do I really, it's been reported everywhere, do I really need to sort of, rehash this again? And I couldn't find any sort of new, without going on a sort of a scavenger hunt, I couldn't find any new relevant information. Obviously, Motorsport Australia will have a full, I've already announced that there will be a full investigation into the incident, along, of course, with the new Northern Territory Police and the Coroner's Department. So I suppose we wait to see what happened there. But, geez, that's got to be incredibly unlucky. I mean, in a race like that where sort of, you got miles and miles of absolutely nothing, and someone happens to lose control of a vehicle just where there happens to be a group of spectators. Geez, that's bad luck all around. So, our thoughts are with the people who are obviously injured, and of course with the family of the gentleman who unfortunately passed away. But that was very unfortunate. That happened. But as we say, motor racing is dangerous. That's the nature of the beast. Okay, so apart from that, anybody else watch WEC on the weekend?
No.
Yeah, that was interesting. We saw the Glickenhaus. Now, what's come out, as you see on the bottom, the Glickenhaus made its debut. Toyota, another 1-2 to Toyota. Of course, they're in a class of their own, and they're just playing with everybody at the moment. But the second of the new hypercars, the Glickenhaus, made its debut with Australian Ryan Briscoe, one of the drivers behind the wheel. Ryan made a bit of a mistake and was involved in an incident while lapping a couple of the GTE cars, including he managed to take out. I mean, I think there were basically two Australians in the race, Ryan and Matt Campbell. And guess who Ryan ran into? Well, sort of. Yep. So Matt was out, and Ryan eventually did get back to the pits, but the car finished well back in the pack. Although it was interesting, the press release from the World Endurance Championship put the best spin on it. They said, and a very encouraging fourth in the hypercar was, that there were four cars in hypercar. So they finished back in 30th place. But what they've announced today is there's going to be two Glickenhauses running in the next round at Monza, and that's going to be the warm-up race for Le Mans. And Mr. Briscoe will not be one of the drivers, which is interesting. Wow. So James Glickenhaus is saying it's got nothing to do with the crash and all the rest of it. He said he was going to make some changes anyway, and Ryan will probably be back behind the wheel, or most certainly be back behind the wheel for Le Mans when and if that runs in August. So Paul joining us in regard to the Fink Desert, the Fink Desert rally, the lack of crowd control and sure safe distance will always be at risk at all times of rally events. Yeah, that's that is the nature of the beast. Stuart's flashing up some Glickenhaus for there. That's the Glickenhaus that ran in the Nürburgring 24 hours. That's not the they've got sort of two versions. That's the sort of the road going Glickenhaus. And then they've got they've got a hypercar version, sort of a prototype, and that's the prototype version they're being constructed. It's quite a nice looking car actually. It's I like it. I think it's a good looking car. When you tear it around, there we are.
Not for the supermarket car park, huh?
No, well, speaking of that, today, down at my local supermarket, in of all places, the Hampton Park Shopping Centre, there was a shiny white brand new Lamborghini down there parked in the shopping centre amongst all of the Hyundais and
I'm going to say
Commodores and Falcons and all the rest of it. It looked.
You're going to say stolen, weren't you?
Well,
nobody keyed it.
Well, I must admit it certainly did look totally out out of place there. Although it's not the first one I've seen there. There was another one that parked there. There was a yellow
Probably
one
stolen like most
a
of them.
couple of years ago. There was also an Audi R8 down there. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, lots of Teslas. They're all over the place here at the moment.
Oh, there's 150,000 of them landed in South Australia the other week.
Wow.
So I don't know who's going to buy them.
Well, not me for a start. Not that I wouldn't
Well,
like
come
one,
on.
of course. I'd be
Just
I'd be
dip
more
into
than
their
happy to-
pocket that great
Yeah, I mean,
money pit.
I'd be more than happy. Jimmy to that,
Yeah, hi, Jimmy.
of course is, we'll say fooling himself if he thinks following will be not having free to wear. Yeah, I mean that's the problem with all of these things in terms of they've proven it with cricket, particularly in England. If you talk to anybody in England who knows anything about cricket, they will tell you that cricket pretty much shot
Wait, hang on.
itself in the foot.
Whoa. Nobody in England knows anything about cricket.
Ooh.
Well, that's a big. Certainly their team don't. And judging by the performance last week against New Zealand, they're struggling. But and possibly one of the reasons they are struggling is that no kids are playing it anymore. Because I spoke to
Not on television.
I spoke
Not on
to
the internet.
I spoke to a journalist. I think then I'm forgetting Mike Dudson, the Formula One journalist who was out here a few years ago, and we interviewed him on the show. And I knew he was a cricket fan of fellow cricket tragic like myself, and I mentioned something about, and he was saying that it had been an unmitigated disaster. He said because his people of his grandchildren's sort of generation, he said they didn't know what cricket was. He said because they'd never seen it. It was just, what all those people in white running around, what are they playing? Because they don't play it at school. It's not on television unless you've got
Not
free,
live
unless
stream.
you've got pay TV.
Wow. I'm thinking I went to primary school at a school where an Australian cricketer taught. I've used Dennis Lilly's aluminium bat as a kid in primary school.
Who was the cricketer?
That thing was, yeah.
Who was it? Who was the cricketer?
It was, it wasn't Border, but it was one of the other ones with the name Alan something. We're talking 45 years ago, so.
Yeah, well, but
Maybe 43. Yeah.
yeah, so a long time ago. But it is a problem. But the problem is that free-to-air television in general, as we know with Channel 31,
You can go back to five
is going
people
to
now
be-
rather than just me.
Yes, I know. I'm just I'm just chatting at the moment. Yeah, I think that as we said, with Channel 31 going, being taken off the air, being forced off the air, free-to-air television in general is being marginalised. And as we said last week, there is a green paper, there is a government green paper at the moment, which basically says that free-to-air will become sort of a fallback. A very basic standard definition fallback service. They're going to say they're talking about actually taking getting rid of high definition from the and going back at least to 720, if not to 576, and it will be there only purely and simply as a fallback service for what they're describing as the handful of people who either can't afford or refuse or don't understand online services or won't pay for pay TV, and it will provide
That's
news
going to
and basic
be
information.
that's going to be interesting as they push the Olympics coming next year. If you're
No
not able to
horse
watch it, 'cause
racing,
they're looking
no
at
football.
broadcasting those in 8K. So no HD channels, standard def for the Olympics. Yeah, people aren't going to.
Yeah, but they can't. They can't do. That's the thing. They can't do over the air. 4K as it is. I mean, if you can certainly do it online. And it's something that I mean, with Office Hours, they've been sort of pushing up and they're talking about sort of long term doing stuff in 4K, and you can now go out and if you've got sort of I'm using a Logitech C90 camera there, and it's only a 1080, but you can go to. If you want to spend a bit over $200, you can go to Officeworks and get a Logitech Brio, which is a 4K camera, and you could do this on YouTube. If you went stream direct to YouTube, not through you can quite easily go to 4K. We could go and we might even do it. We could go from broadcast the show in 4K because the RMIT studio is a 4K studio. All the cameras there are 4K. All the equipment's 4K. If we're not end up not doing it for channel 31, where we've got to send them basically a 576 copy, and if the pipe is big enough, we could easily stream. We could easily stream 4K to YouTube. Not that I can see there's any great benefit in seeing us in 4K.
Looking like a relief map of the moon.
The Himalayas or whatever. So so there we go. But anybody else got? As I said, it's real quiet. I mean, apart from the drag racing on the weekend and the WEC, there really wasn't much on that I saw. So if anybody's got,
there is Rocky Mountain Race Week going on in the US with all the street-driven cars. That's been enjoyable. I've been watching the Bang Shift live stream of that, and it's been reasonably good quality.
There's so much of that stuff on the internet. Well, this is the benefit of online stuff. There is so much of that stuff with Motor Mania and all that. I was just watching some stuff before, and coming up this weekend, there's about 6 or 7 similar sort of meetings, like off-street meetings, local. I mean, there's that. See, this is
Geez. Thank you.
There you go. Oh, yeah,
that's nasty. That's a bit rough.
That's a bit rough. We do a pretty good job under the circumstances. But yeah, I mean, well, in terms of I'm in a really difficult position. I got to tell you, I'm in a really difficult position tonight because I know some stuff that's coming.
Hang on,
and I can't.
I'm just going to put it in here. That's what he said, people. That's what he said.
But I can't go into any details for a number of reasons. But
you're talking about the.
yeah.
Well timed, Richard. Well timed. Well played, sir. Okay. They don't want to have community events because people will talk to it. People talking to each other.
No, they won't.
Conversations.
We've got out of talking to each other.
That's how you end up with governments getting changed.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the point. I mean, well, the thing is, online has opened up a lot of options for communities. Though, I mean, basically what we did last night what we've been doing on a Wednesday night at the Boogeyman Bar. That is really grassroots stuff that simply could not be done anywhere else. Just 3 or 4 years ago, that would not have been possible. I mean, there were 4 of us in there last night. We had, how many cameras did we have last night, Stuart? We only had 4 or 5?
Only 4.
Only 4 last night. We only had 4, but we have had up to 6 or 8 cameras.
We have had 7.
7 cameras in the place, which was probably 1 or 2 too many. I mean, but last night I thought really went well. It was another fun. Okay, many people watch over to see what goes wrong this time. Well, I don't know what's going wrong. If you tell me what's gone wrong recently, I'd really like to know. About it because I think it's been pretty good, quite frankly. But anyway, that's.
Well, I know what has gone wrong. It died. I got home from last night's stream and it died.
Yeah, that's not good. As I said, there's nothing that it's certainly nothing that having a budget would fix. I certainly think if you have a look at the stream that came out originally from K over the drags, or particularly on Friday, or stuff that's come from some other highly paid people over the last few weeks with motor racing, I think that you can't complain about the job that we do on a budget of absolutely nothing. But people do, and that's their thing. I mean, as I said, if people don't like it, they can always switch it off. It's not a problem.
Well, it's not an absolutely nothing budget. It's probably a negative budget because you've spent all the money on pizza.
Well, that's where the money
Where's
money
my
comes
pizza?
from.
I didn't get any pizza.
You have
In
to
the
come
studio.
in and do camera.
Yeah, it's tonight for this show. It's it's virtual.
Virtual pizza.
Virtual
We're having
pizza.
virtual pizza tonight.
I had some earlier.
Mhm.
It was nice.
But yeah, we did
You
have
can
a
print it
little-
out, but it does taste a little like cardboard.
Yeah. Don't they
Like
all?
everything I make.
Not talk to each other fat fingers. I'm not sure what that means, but anyway. If anybody knows what that means, I'm not sure. But
Fat fingers
Well, I
means
know
you're
what
usually
sexy
pressing two
fingers are.
buttons at the one time,
yeah,
as far as I know.
That's
Jimmy,
what I
tell
thought.
us.
yeah. I mean, that's very, very true. Can't even afford to also run on the smell of an oily rag. We can't even afford the rag, let alone the bloody oil.
Yes.
So, look, obviously that's obviously going to be a problem, over the next few in terms of how we go on, because if we're not on free-to-air television, I mean, it makes the task of getting sponsors. We've been very, very lucky over the years that we've had some very good sponsors who have helped us out and have sort of made it more affordable for us to do this, and it certainly helped us out. Never paid for the lot, but certainly helped us out a lot. Going to be very, very hard to do that if we're not on free-to-air television, which we all know about, but. Anyway, as I said, I'm hoping that we'll have some more news next week, either on the show on Thursday night from the studio. We're back in the studio on Tuesday, which will be good. But that, as I said, that will be our last. That will be our final. At this stage, that will be our final show, free to air on Channel 31. So. Yeah, a bit disappointing after all these years. Continue to thank you, Russell, by the way, for the letter. Russell sent me a copy of a letter he sent to his local member of parliament, to push for the retention of Channel 31. We've had a lot of support. There has been huge support for the petition. There's been lots of stuff online. You might have seen the project have run some stuff recently. Even in the papers today have run some stuff. It's been on radio. Lots of support in Adelaide, of huge support. The Melbourne City Council passed a motion last night supporting community television and Channel 31 and calling on the government to change their mind. But at this stage, the answer is still no. And at midnight on June the 30th, that's the end of us.
It's a shame the
cost
deal.
them anything.
What's that?
It doesn't
It's a
cost
shame
them
that-
anything.
No,
Sorry,
I
No,
know.
it costs the
talking
government
over each
anything,
other.
that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I get sometimes. I mean, I had sometimes people online will get on and say to you, like, oh yeah, my taxes are going into that crap. No, they're not.
Nope.
Your taxes are not going into that. We do not get a cent of government funding. The only thing we get that approaches government funding is if the government buys an advert like anybody else, in the same way they would buy an advert from Channel 9 or Channel 10 or anybody like that. But in terms of getting something, in terms of being like the ABC or SBS, we don't get anything from them at all. So Channel 31 has been self-sufficient now for over 25 years, and I think they've done a pretty bloody good job, and it's very, very depressing. I've been very angry today when you think about a number of things. It's just it's not right that it's been dragged off the
Think
air
of the
like that.
number of people who are working for shows like the project that have actually come through those studios, got their training. It's basically been free training for the commercial broadcasters that they haven't had to go and train people themselves. Because trust me, it's not taught in media studies. It's not taught in journalism courses. All that stuff to camera and getting your lighting right and actually using a camera, it's not taught in those courses.
No,
Didn't Roland Manners learn that by studying at RMIT?
No, Rove
Or
learned
did
by
he actually get
hosting at
experience on
RMIT.
Channel 31, which he
No,
ignores?
it was an RMITV program.
Yes, but
Because I was in
electoral.
I was in the back of the tech room behind the control room while they were broadcasting on Saturday nights. And there's a lovely story I can tell you about that.
Yeah, no, we probably
was
don't
on
want to
it.
hear it. Probably don't want to hear it, actually.
Not
but,
right now.
Yeah, that's
Not
it.
while we're being recorded.
So in light of that, I don't think there's a lot. Well, we got supercars happening on the weekend. Now that is free to wear, as we said before. The supercars from Darwin is free to wear. Oh, speaking of drag racing, tomorrow night on 7+, there will be, because there's it's sort of a triple header this weekend at Hidden Valley. The Australian Superbikes Championship is happening at Hidden Valley alongside the supercars. So a bit like the old days, you got the superbikes and the supercars together on the same card. But tomorrow night, Friday night, at the nostalgia funny cars, the Aeroflow funny cars, and I think there's about a field of about 8 or something. Nitro funny cars will be in action, and that's going to be shown tomorrow night live on 7+, apparently. So that'll be fantastic to have.
That'll be nice, but the sound guys are in for a surprise when they hear those things.
If they've not done it before, yeah.
The earmuffs are for stopping the sound, not picking
By the
it
way,
up.
on the weekend, you might have seen it online at the Winter Nats. They had the delightful the Pauline Hanson standing in between standing on the start line between that, getting absolutely her eyes, just burning with nitro fumes and all that. But once again, the look, the look, when those cars took off, just the absolute terror on her face when those top fuel cars blasted away. It was hilarious.
Oh yes.
Okay, so what? Hang on, I'm going to have to search for this. So, what event was it?
Winter Nationals, Winter Nationals. Pauline Hanson Winter Nationals. It'll be out there. It was on Facebook. It'll be out there.
Brett, you can tell the audience about that screwdriver at Calder Park that time.
Yeah, that was the most dangerous thing. That was the closest I've come to death at a racetrack. Was at Calder Park. And it was actually our guest from last week's show, Phil Reed. It was his father, Jim Reed. Jim didn't know anything about it at the time. None of them did, but they were there. I was filming at the side of the track, at the start line. And I just sort of stepped back from the camera a bit to get a wider, and suddenly there was this blur, just went in front of my face, just dropped, and I looked down, and embedded into the concrete was a screwdriver. And what had happened was someone had left a screwdriver on the engine, and when they moved, it had fallen onto the blower belt, launched a mile into the air,
Bloody heck.
wandered round and dived straight down and missed me by that much. If I'd have been half a step forward, it would have gone straight through. So I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you there, Jeff. I mean, it's. But anyway, we won't go there. Russell pointing out, yes, lots of work going on at Heathcote to bring the track up to top fuel standard. There is actually work going on at, which Phil sort of alluded to last week. There is certainly work at Calder Park, which will bring the track up to top fuel standard. That's what they've designed it for. Whether we see top fuel at Calder Park really at the moment has nothing to do with safety anymore. It really is just pure politics. And if you know anything, drag racing unfortunately is absolutely torn in two at the moment between the 400 Thunder, who are based running sort of meetings at the moment at Sydney and at Willowbank, and have now signed with Heathcote as well, and that's why I think we will. I'm sure we will see it, if at the very least exhibition races, if not full-on meetings for top fuelers at Heathcote.
That'd be worth the drive. That'd be worth the drive up there to do.
Yeah, Formula 4 and past the tank at Winton, a metre away from head height. Yeah, that's pretty scary. We've had that as well. We've over the years, but not going quite as fast as the top fuel dragster. As Paul said, drag racing goes through its own cams versus AASA. The difference being in this case is that very much. It's as if the supercars had moved to AASA. It was like basically it was the top fuel guys who said we're not happy with the way this sport is being run. We're going to go off, and a couple of the promoters saying we're not happy with this sport is being run. they got together and they started 400 Thunder, and it seems to be going. It seems to be going very well. Andrew, on the other hand, I mean, are very much on the basis of, this is the way it's been run for years, and they're really concentrating. Andrew are really concentrating on the sportsmen, on the grassroots. Andrew are sort of saying, drag races are drag races are drag races. Whether you're a top fuel racer, whether you're a sportsman competitor, whether you're driving your hotted up Commodore from the street, everybody is a drag, and we're all in this together, and we are all one. Whereas the top fuel guys said, no, hang on, we're the people who bring the people through the gates. We're the people spending the ridiculous amounts of money. We should be given we should be treated a bit better, and you can understand it from their point of view.
Well, treated a bit better is probably not the correct. Have more say in their own future.
Yeah,
that's
So,
understandable.
yeah. So and they're doing that now. The interesting thing is with the national series that Andrew just announced, you've got Top Fuel Bike. Which will run, and also the top door slammers. Now there was only 8 top door slammers, I think. It might have even been 6. Could have even been 4. Now that I'm thinking about it, but there was a very small field of top door slammers. That now the 400 Thunder have got sort of 2 categories that are very similar. They've got Pro Slammer, and they've also got Pro Mod, and Pro Mod is the new category, and that was very well well attended. Whereas in Andrew, those cars would probably be put together in some way or another into a bigger field. But it was great to watch on the weekend. Watching the coverage on KO was basically went right through the whole period of time. He didn't miss a single run, I don't think. So it was fabulous stuff. Okay, that's. I think that's just about run us down for this weekend. As I said, it was. It's been an interesting week, personally. So, I agree with that. Three top fuelers is enough. As Phil said last week, there's supposedly 12 around. Rochelle Splatt will be back for the next round. She's finally put together a sponsorship deal, so that will be good. I'm not sure what's going on with Santo Rapisada. I think Santo has Santo's leanings are possibly towards Andrew as well, but we'll find out hopefully in the weeks and months to come. But drag racing is the great sleeping giant in terms of spectators. Nothing is going to drag through outside of street races for supercars. Nothing will drag a crowd in like a full field of top fuel drags. If they ran if they're going to have the nationals again in February at Calder, that's the plan. And if you had a full field of top fuel and a full field of top door slammers and a full field of bikes and all the rest of it, I think even today they'd get 25,000 plus if they advertised it properly. But
out at Calder.
Wally's got old used oil out the back of there. Oh, well, thank you very much. Or any donation gratefully accepted. Thanks, Wally. We appreciate that. Okay,
I'm just going to thank Paul van der Acker for the link. Oh, and there's the launch hit. Oh, wow. Yeah, I can't play that video obviously because it's copyright, but that's fabulous. That's absolutely fabulous. Now we just need to get Scotty from marketing to stand between two of them, and that'll put the wind right up them.
Yeah, that's it. But anyway, the ticker. We had that a few weeks ago. I just didn't get around. I just had a little bit of time tonight to actually put it together. But I normally don't have a lot of. Oh,
come on! It only took me like 2 minutes to do a ticker before.
Yeah, well, I've got to find. Yeah, but that's just stuff that you made off the top of your head. I mean, it's not.
Exactly.
I've got to go out and find this stuff and edit it.
Well, I still did have to go and find pants though.
Yeah, well, as I said, the less we know about your pants, the better. I think we all are. Okay, guys. Oh, yeah, IndyCar. Kevin Magnussen to make his IndyCar debut, replacing Felix Rosenqvist. What a crash! Gee, that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very frightening crash. When you have a look at it, from the in-car camera stuff, how quickly he stopped. That was yet another case, as I said tonight on the news. That's another case of how far both the car and the circuit safety have come, because that probably. That would have been a much more serious accident. As it turns out, I mean, he's probably got a bit of concussion, which is why he hasn't been cleared to run this week. But apart from that, as far as I know, there are no broken bones. What has yet again bit a couple of people? I mean, Alex Rins is coming back this week. Is coming back to race in MotoGP after a cycling incident. And Rinus VK in IndyCar is going to miss this week, going to miss the next IndyCar round as well, because he's also been injured in a cycling accident. Racing drivers, please do not ride
cycling
push
accident?
bikes.
Was it the same cycling accident? His cycling
Run over
accident
by an
a
enraged
code
racing driver?
What was that, Chris?
Run over by an enraged racing driver?
Yeah, well, it's yeah, there's just been so many people. Of course, we've had a couple of fatalities in terms of in that as well. So yeah, the dangerous thing push bike. I mean, look, if it has wheels, it should have an engine. That's all I'm saying. I mean, we're not cavemen anymore. All right. I mean, we have the technology. Let's use it, people.
I'll argue for a motor as well, just to cover the EVs that are hopped up for performance.
Yeah, so
and that actually might be a story worth letting people know about too. The EPA in the US is cracking down on cars that have been converted to race cars, and where their EPA goes, ours follows.
Well, they are right. I mean, SEMA have got a major
the RPM Act.
The RPM Act to get there, because it's a totally ridiculous law. Basically, it says that cars, when they come off the production, must stay unmodified for any reason. Not on the road. You can't say you can't take a car off you can't buy a Mustang and modify it and race it on for a weekend or something like that.
So if you've got a car with
all modifications banned. And
if you've got a car with a VIN number and you turn it into a race car that's trailered to a track, you're still breaking the law. And they're now going after not only the people who are doing it, but also the companies that are selling any sort of hardware that is used for it. So, and yeah, our EPA will no doubt be watching it and will probably follow it.
What about a tow bar? That's a modification.
Who knows in this
not
day
a
and
performance
age,
one, not one that can fix with EPA. The one guy who's going to get a little bit of a shock will be the guy who's just put an LS engine in a Tesla. I mean, if that doesn't break the law, nothing does.
And then you have the other person. I don't know if you saw it just recently. It's sort of sacrilege in a way, but someone's put a whole electric running gear into a Mark I Cortina. And
there's several of those out of the UK. There's actually a conversion company out of the UK that do modified classic cars. So things like a Lancia, not the Beta, but the earlier one with the Fulvia, I think it is, front-wheel drive, and they've replaced front motor, batteries, and what have you. They get pretty good range, and in a small classic car, they're a good choice.
Yeah,
but that does change the emissions of the car.
Yeah, there's a story online with James May with his with an MG that they whacked that they converted to electric, and it seemed to it certainly looked and sounded, it didn't sound all that good, but it certainly went very well and seemed to be a fun car to drive. But anyway, as I said, I don't. It doesn't matter to me because I'm never going to have an electric car anyway. It's not by choice, but simply by financial reasons. So that's the way it is. It basically when
okay, who else of you watching has just gone straight to Brett in an electric cart at the shops? Come on, it's in there.
No, I don't.
Well, just wait a while and there'll be cheap second-hand ones.
That'll be the only electric car is my trolley. I mean, there's my going around the supermarket. You can hire them at most places. A couple of times I've walked past a Fountain Gate and thought, do I really want to walk all the way up to? I could just go and say, sometimes I've got the walking cane with me. I could easily go in there and say, hey, listen, I need one of those. Yeah, grab one of those for a couple of hours.
They really do need a tow hitch for the shopping trolleys, though.
I have seen them.
Yes.
In fact, the next door neighbour had one, and he modified one to make a little shopping trolley so he could go up the pub and stack it up with his beer. It was just the right size to put a dozen full size bottles in the, or a couple of slabs.
I
in
like
the
that
back
so
of it.
much.
So you go up there, and he'd tootle up there and go through the dry. They'd put it in there, and he'd tootle on back again, and yeah. Okay,
on
guys,
that
I think
note-
we're going to call it. Yes, on that note, I think we're going to call it quits a little early. The show tonight. If you didn't see the show tonight with Cooper Webster and whatever else was on there, the news and all the rest of it, we had lots of drag racing tonight. We had some all the runs from the pro classes from the Winter Nationals, also NHRA. Plus WEC, IMSA, we had some IMSA competition as well that we've got in the news. So all of that stuff, and we also heard from Chaz Mostert. Chaz Mostert, of course, signed with once again with Walkinshaw and Andretti United. But we'll have plenty more to talk about with supercars and that on next week's show, because we've got Darwin this week, so we'll have something to talk about there in terms of where. In terms of where Doc is, Russell, I would say that Doc is fast asleep at the moment because he's been starting work at about 3 a.m. every morning for the past week. So I imagine he's tucked up in bed and fast asleep, which is probably not a bad place to go at this stage.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll see you next week. Once again, thank you for your support of Channel 31. If you haven't yet, do as Russell has done and send a letter through to your local MP, telling them that you support Channel 31 staying on air. As I said, in terms of the future of In Pit Lane, there is stuff happening, and as I said, unfortunately I'm not allowed to tell you, but it's potentially exciting. But that's all I can say. So hopefully we'll be able to tell you something next week. Hopefully what's going to be announced will be announced, and I'll be able to say something then. Okay, we'll see you next week. I've been doing this with a couple of hands tied behind my back tonight, so we'll see you all next week. Paul, Mark, Tony, everybody, Russell, Wally, everybody. Box. We'll see you all next week. Until then, from all of us on
Bye-bye.
Full Course
Great to
Valley,
speak to you.
we'll say bye bye.
Good night.